Okay, next question. Fiona Black. She's thinking of buying a multi-unit freehold block, which Sophie might want to just explain what that is in a second, but don't know how the mortgages work for these.
Yeah, so multi-unit freehold block is essentially a property that is on one title and has multiple individual properties in there. So you usually see that in a scenario where you've got an old terrace house that's been converted to three separate apartments, for example. So they're freehold, they're all separate in terms of they've got their own utilities and they've got separate entrances, but they're all on the same title. So that is where it's essentially multiple units and they're all freehold and they're in a block. So that's what it
Sometimes the
is.
services are not split, are they? I
Not
think
always,
you've come,
no.
and that's a key thing
Yeah,
that if they're on sub meters on things like that, then
yeah.
give us those real details about how the electric, how the gas, how the water is
It all
split to each
works.
unit, so we can talk to lenders and understand that that's acceptable.
Yeah. In terms of options with mortgages, it's there are lots of available products on multi-unit freehold blocks. Lenders that were happy to lend to buy-to-lets. There's again a smaller pool. Not everybody will lend to them. Of those lenders that lend on buy-to-lets that will lend to multi-units. And essentially, it works in a very similar way to a buy-to-let. So essentially, the rent that you're going to receive from from those properties determines how much you can borrow. They would value the property as a whole rather than each individual unit because it is one title. And they would just assess you as the owner or as the director if it's through a limited company, but the rent determines the borrowing. So they would take the rent from um all separate units um within that block.
Now here's a tip. If you want to jot this down, particularly Fiona or anyone else thinking in a multi-unit blocks, this is how to squeeze extra value, extra profit, put money back in your pocket. Is you If you want to really secure it as a multi-unit block, because you may be getting it at a discount right now, because there might be 3 units, as Sophie said, might be 10 units. That the seller is trying to get rid of at one go, and you've got a real sort of good discount. But to get some extra value out, you buy it as a multi-unit block. But I've seen many landlords then once they've acquired it, and they might want to do some renovations, refurb, whatever they need to do to the units, but then they create individual leases on every single unit and refinance them out as individual mortgages. And that usually, as a rule of thumb, adds straight away an extra 10% to the value of each individual unit. So to make an extra 10% profit, then you convert it from multi-unit to individual leases. And I do see property education companies selling this as a strategy. You've got it for free there. You got an extra 10 to 15% if your multi-unit strategy is for you.
You've
Okay,
already moved
moving
on.
on.
Sorry,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry, go on, so.
Fiona, who asked that question, has just put her hand up to raise to ask a question.
Oh,
So
sorry, Fiona. We
it's okay.
I didn't spot you.
So it's not a commercial mortgage, it's basically residential mortgage, but just because it's one unit.
Correct. Yeah, it's the same
Yep.
buy-to-let
Okay. Fab.
companies usually that you get any other buy-to-let mortgage from. They'll quite often have within their menu of products multi-unit mortgages.
Yeah.
But have a think about splitting to leases, whether that works for you or not, and then refinance them out on individual mortgages rather than one big multi-unit mortgage. I've seen landlords do that to generate some extra profit.